Okay, so we're going to wing it because my USB drive is not working. Unfortunately, it's your loss because I have some really awesome graphics I put together. I was just amazed. I was watching it myself. So basically, my talk was going to be based on what's in this article. And we'll just go over this because I know some of you probably won't want to read this. So this is a good example of the thrill of victory. We actually eradicated a weevil in Laguna Beach that we didn't think we could eradicate. And then today's meeting is about the agony of defeat because you're not going to eradicate this. I'm sure you said that earlier. So why did we successfully eradicate red palm weevil in Laguna Beach? Well, basically, this eradication occurred from about 5 years from when we first found the weevil. And one of the reasons is I think we were successful is the area was quite small. And if you ever go to Laguna Beach, you'll know that on the east, it's a wilderness area, basically desert. On the west, you have the ocean, and then the only ways to get into Laguna Beach and in and out are the Highway 1 that goes along the coast, and then the 133 that comes in from inland. There's really no nursery industry. There's not much commerce in terms of shipping in a lot of things into the port. So this is about as isolated as you can get. And the area was quite small. We're not talking the border between Mexico and California and Arizona and Texas. We're talking, I think in here it says, about 8 or 9 square miles that we were dealing with. The other thing is that it was in an area that had a lot of people who were very fond of their palm trees and were well aware of the worth of the trees. When we were dealing with the public and when we were dealing with the public and dealing with different homeowners and agencies, everybody was on board that this was a really important issue that had to be addressed quickly. And we don't always have that luxury when we deal with a new pest. It's usually going to take a lot of convincing of somebody to fund it, and then it takes a lot of convincing to get homeowners and the industry to come on board. On this one here, when they found it, the CDFA immediately put up traps, about 100 and something traps. And we had a pheromone. So there's a really key element there. You have an agency who's willing to trap, and that can go out there and check them regularly. And then you have a pheromone that's really effective. The pheromones are chemical communications the insect uses to draw in the other sex usually. And we don't always have a pheromone for an exotic pest that comes in. When we do, that makes it really efficient when we set up trap lines. The other thing is that the symptoms on this are very easy to see visually when the tree gets hit. And with a good pair, I have some stabilized, gyroscope stabilized binoculars, and we could actually use, CDFA actually purchased about 7 of them, and we were actually able to look at the top of tall trees with the symptoms, which meant that we didn't have to get a lift every time we wanted to look into a tree. But when we did, Caltrans would block off roads for us with just a few minutes notice, and loan us a lift. West Coast Arborists loaned us their lift. I'm sure that cost me somehow, but I haven't figured that out yet. So we had all the resources we needed to actually do a good job of survey and detection. And to answer your question, Craig, what's attracted to fermented palms? I have a photo in my presentation of Mark Hoddle's feet that were the only thing you could see because he had his whole body inside the trunk of the tree, and that's how we collected that palm weevil that's on all the all the covers. This photo on the cover is a palm weevil that Mark dug out. And so I'm not sure what kind of flies are attracted, but certain types of entomologists are. One of the things that Mark did that was really important is he ran the DNA on this beetle. And it's still a little bit controversial, but not really. He identified it as a different beetle than the red palm weevil. And when he did the DNA analysis, that's important because the DNA of many of the pests often tells us where it came from. And that's critical in terms of bottle control and trying to figure out how it might have gotten here. There's another video you probably should try to watch of Mark actually eating the larvae when he was over, I don't know, where were you, Mark, in the Philippines?
Indonesia.
Indonesia. And he was actually taking live larvae and popping them in his mouth and eating them. He had a lot of hair before that. So this identification now says that it's Bonita. And I think, Mark, you've convinced me that it's a different species. And that identification said it wasn't from Europe or Africa or Egypt. This is a different animal. And so this is the first record of Bonita outside of its range, which is Malaysia,
Indonesia,
that area. So when he went back and did his studies, he was able to go to the origin because he had genetically identified it. And one of the things he did is he tested the pheromone that CDFA was using to verify that that was in fact the pheromone that would attract this beetle. And we were lucky because it was. The pheromone that they're using actually is a Bonita pheromone. And so actually if it was red palm weevil, we're not quite sure if that would have been the right one. So those were important criteria that were there. So the biology of this beetle is such that could have been would help us to eradicate it. When we look at any type of eradication program, you're hoping that you have layers of strategies that you can use against the pest. So we don't just depend on pesticides. We don't just depend on removing trees. It's a whole suite of strategies that are layered. Survey, do you have a good pheromone? Do you have funding to actually check the traps on a regular basis? Do you have the scientists in the area who can actually help do the research on this? Because what we find with a lot of these new pests is that they behave differently here than they do where they came from. And in fact, many times they'll come here and the host material they feed on back home, if you go on a bottle control exploration trip, oftentimes the scientists will tell us it's very difficult to find the pest. If it's very difficult to find the pest, that's a good sign, because that means that it's probably under some type of good biological control. So when this pest came in, it looks like the Canary Island date palms were not its preferred host. So we ran into a little bit of luck there. It wasn't getting the host food material that it would really thrive on. This doesn't always happen. We have the Prolificus shot-hole borer that's coming here and finding hundreds of trees it's never been exposed to. And unfortunately, those trees are naive, what we call naive trees, and so they have no protection because they haven't co-evolved with the pest. Fortunately for us, even though this beetle could kill the Canary Island date palms, it appears that wasn't its best food source to really reproduce. We know it can kill trees because it killed quite a few palms before somebody even thought to bring in the larvae that were in the trunk. So it was able to kill it, but I think it wasn't quite as high quality as it needed to really just take off. So we looked out there. From a pest management standpoint, we had some information from Europe and that area on things that they had tried. Saudi Arabia has a tremendous amount of money into research programs to look for that. So fortunately for us, those pesticides were registered. Now, there wasn't money for an eradication treatment program per se, so we were lucky again because West Coast Arborist, Gilbert Vargas, who was an arborist, RPW Services, Target Specialty Products, they all volunteered to do the applications, and they donated the materials for us. One of the trees that we did treat, they actually ended up removing a couple of years later because it was encroaching on the foundation of a building or something. So they were removing it not because of palm weevil, but because of another reason. But that is a tree that we knew was infested. It had all the symptoms, and we did the treatments. And when they were removing the tree, they called us up, and Mark was able to be there, and he dissected the tree, and there was no evidence of any beetle activity. So that's not scientific, but that's kind of giving us the idea that maybe the treatments work. And whenever we found infested trees in that Laguna Beach area, either CDFA or the Ag Commissioner would approach the homeowner, or the University of California would approach the homeowner. So what we found oftentimes is that if you walk up to a homeowner in a uniform and say, "Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you," they're not really welcome. And so there were cases where some people liked that, and there were times when they wanted the University of California advisor or scientist to say, "We're from the University of California, and we're wanting to do research on this exotic pest. And by the way, if you collaborate with us, we will have arborists and pest control applicators that will come in and treat your palms for free, and then give them a little bit of the economic data on how much their palms were worth and what it would cost if they actually had to remove them." So we had a lot of collaboration, and that was really important to get things done quickly and efficiently, and to be real nimble on our feet. When they wouldn't let somebody, they sometimes would not answer the door if a CDFA person knocked on the door. And there were some of them in Laguna Beach that they didn't live there, these were their second or third homes. We had a very difficult time finding the owners, so the regulatory agencies were able to track those people down for us. So the response was very quick once they had the scientific advisory panel, the technical advisory panel went through Laguna Beach, took a look at everything, gave their thoughts on it. Then we got on the ground, and with all the collaborators, we were very quickly able to go out there, and I think we eradicated it. So the other thing that Mark did when he went overseas is he actually, when he was trying to figure out if this was the correct pheromone, he actually found ways of enhancing the activity of the pheromones. And what that entailed is, is Dwayne still here, or did he leave because I'm speaking? So we were able to get Dwayne Young and Albert to donate trees to us, and Mark would go out there and cut the trees down, and we would take the heart of the tree, and we'd cut it up and split it up and put it next to the pheromone and the fermenting fruit, and we piled the palm fishing. We cut up the trunk and we piled it up, and we set those up in 3 spots. We triangulated the infestation in Laguna Beach to verify that the CDFA traps were actually working. And we didn't catch anything. So his research overseas in the country of origin showed that really enhanced the traps. It's very expensive to cut down a palm tree and use it for a trap, but we did it. And all of us, we were checking these traps. How often, Mohammed, did you check them? A couple times a week? It was pretty frequent.
We started buying daily, every other day, and then weekly.
Yeah, so every other day we started going there checking these traps. And it took, Mohammed he doesn't get up early in the morning, so he could be afternoon. I go early in the morning because I'm used to working in the field. And Mark would come out, and we were about half a dozen of us that would switch off and do this every other day, monitoring to make sure that these fields weren't there. So that was a really important part of it. Also, we had a second way of redundancy of checking the efficiency of the trapping system we were using. So the removal of the palms were often done at no expense to the homeowner, because West Coast arborists or some of the other arborists like Gilbert would volunteer to do it. And then we had the protocols for taking those palms and destroying them so they be ground up and have a potential to reinvest. So we took all the volunteer hour and all the high salaries of CDFA, and we put it all together, and we figured out we eradicated this at a cost of about $1 million. And that's nothing. And we did it in 5 years, and that's phenomenal. So let's talk about the other layer that might have helped us here, and that's the climate. So if you've ever been to any of those areas like Bali or Indonesia, you know that the climate there is way different than here. A lot of rain, high humidity, and the temperatures are higher. So one of the reasons I think that we were able to successfully take these layers of pesticide treatment, monitoring is really critical on all these things. So that little website he asked, that's really important that you report. It's important that you go out on this field trip and look at this, so you don't send us a bunch of reports that put us off on these little wild goose chases. I had suggested to Mark, we had done a similar thing on another pest, and we would put a Trojan virus on your email, so that if you turn off the phone, you were screwed. You would never send us an email. So we think that the layers, pesticide monitoring, not the best host material, layered on with the climate changes. So if you look at those graphs in the CalAg article, what you'll see is that the rain level is up here. So well, we'll go temperature first. Average temperature was up just below 30 degrees centigrade. And I have to be honest with you, I have no idea what that means because I didn't learn that. But anyway, 30 degrees centigrade average. But look at the average temperature in Laguna Beach. So it's below 15 in January, and it goes to a high of about maybe 23 in August, September. You know, these are cold-blooded animals that come from a tropical area. Their biology is driven by heat to a great extent, and we're not providing that heat in Laguna Beach. I think you've got the heat here. By the way, that's why I'm leaving before you guys go outside. The next one is the average rainfall. And so we're in a drought. If you look here, they get 150 millimeters of rain at their peak. That's a lot of water. And then we're looking down here, this is typical of Southern California. I think our peak was about maybe in the 90s. Okay, so didn't have the water that it needed. The palms didn't have the water that it needed. So that's a major factor. And then humidity. The humidity here in Laguna goes up and down, and maybe it's the coastal fog that's making it go up, but it goes down quite often below the humidity that this beetle needs. So I have a funny feeling that the climate was a major factor that enabled all the other things that may have been marginal altogether, cumulatively, that resulted in whatever we did eradicating that beetle. That being said, the square miles you're dealing with dwarf what we were dealing with. You have ports, airports, you have a lot of traffic, you have the Mexican border, there's all kinds of ways this beetle can come in, but it just doesn't have to worry about it. It's flying over from a heavily infested area in Mexico. So your situation is not as good as ours. And so this is just a model of what worked and some factors that might enable you to maybe slow this down and live with it. But I don't think personally that you're going to be able to eradicate this. The other thing is a little term. It's called, if you look on page 6, there's the Alihi threshold. So what that means is the Alihi threshold is a fancy way of explaining why things might not establish. And one of them is if you have the founding beetles flying in and they're in small numbers, for them to really build up to the level it would take to be devastating to a population of palm trees, it's a little iffy. Because what happens when you have a small group of founding beetles, the genetic diversity is not there. And it could easily not be able to survive because, inbreeding too much. So with many pests, that really limits their ability to take off. Some insects can do it. Argentine ants are a good example of an exception to that rule. So they're all closely related ants, but they're everywhere, right? Maybe I don't know exactly what's going on there. That's why I'm not at UCR. I'm not smart enough to know that stuff. That's for Mark. And then we're talking about the social, economic, regulatory, and political factors. So that's another one where that was a perfect storm in Laguna Beach. So socially, the people in that community wanted to eradicate it. The politicians fully supported the efforts to do this. The regulatory agencies, kudos to the regulatory agencies. You guys did a great job. I know a lot of you are dispersed throughout the room in case I ticked you off and had to leave you quickly. But the CDFA and USDA did a stellar job on this, reacting to it very quickly. Okay, so I think when the Alihi threshold, I covered a lot of it. We had unsuitable climate, we had suboptimal food source, we had the low genetic variability, and we had pesticides that actually seemed to work, or at least worked enough that in conjunction with that, it was able to take them out. So, that's pretty much what I was going to talk about on my slides, so minus all the animations.
As far as the species that was found in CJ, that was the Palmera trees, when did that start becoming a problem? Is it?
Well, actually, it's for you, but I'll answer for Mark.
Okay.
And hope I'm right. So when we were dealing with red palm weevil, Mark had actually gone into Mexico. And we knew that Palmera was there. And when we had meetings, we would have people from Mexico, like growers, that would grow palms down in Mexico, they would tell us about palmarum and how they try to manage it using, and the pheromones, by the way, a lot of the growers would tell me, were quite effective. So the little hint there is, if we have a pheromone and potentially in isolated situations, you might be able to use the pheromones as part of your management strategies, which can work. And that whole line of research that Dr. Jocelyn Millar at UCR does could be very important here, because you're not going to obviously be able to spray all of the palm trees in San Diego. Although I think aerial spraying would be a great thing for you to try to do. And we could use drones. I was trying to get drones to look at these trees, by the way, at that time. FAA hadn't finalized the rules on whether you could use drones to do that, but we had thought about using drones to try to get up above or look down the crown to see if there was any evidence of feeding. But it's been there for a while. It's really in high levels. It's adjacent to us, and they can fly over that border very easily. So this is just a bad situation. And by the way, if any of you really want some help with this, I'm retired. I don't want the agony. I left on a high note.
All right, I've got time for one more question for John.
Yeah.
Do you have what insecticide was used in your eradication study in Laguna?
Exactly what Mark said. You weren't listening, were you? So, before I answer that, could you wipe the drool off your shirt? Because obviously you're sleeping. We were like going through the literature and trying to find anything that people were using. And by the way, in Saudi Arabia, the stuff they use is crazy dangerous. So we had to eliminate that immediately. But we do know that there was some literature that said that the neonics would have some effect. You know, we're trying to think about the properties of these things, and that's why Mark said we did like soil injections with imidacloprid, and then we're hoping that if we did dinotepron onto the trunk, we might be able to get some of it to move in faster. So we just had like a time release kind of effort, just like by gosh and by golly, folks, okay? And then we knew that pesticides drenched into the crown, if the beetles are in there, the literature said that that has a possibility of working. So that's what we did. There was a recommendation in Europe, they're actually cutting the windows where they cut fronds away so you can see more easily into the crown. But it always made us nervous because we've got fusarium around here, so every time you're making that cut, it's like exploratory surgery that you might die from to try to figure out what you have. So I wasn't real excited about that, but we did try it on some palms. You know, I would say if you catch an infestation fairly early, and if you know it's in the area like you do here, and you have to protect the palm, it's worth trying. And that might be a line of research that we should be doing here fairly soon. I see Jennifer and
is that a parking lot item, research on additional treatment?
Yeah, so you definitely need some research on treatment. And that's expensive, by the way, because when we do research on treatments, ideally we have untreated controls that we know are going to be attacked. So the untreated controls are given a death sentence. And so when you're looking at big palms, that's pretty expensive research. Unless Dwayne and Albert donate, I don't know, what we want, 20 palms per treatment? So we're going to have 20 dead, untreated palms on whatever trial we do to try to figure out what's going on. And then you have to consider all the other variables like soil type, time of year, how they irrigate over that. So it's not simple research, and research is kind of what we call iterative, where you kind of, the one experiment builds on the one before it, and you just need to have a series of experiments. And then you can do some informal looking at infested trees that people have treated, and then following that. It's not scientific, but it gives you an idea of whether or not something seems to be working.
All right, thank you, John.
You're welcome.